Hello, I'm Finola Burke from Research as a Service, and welcome to our 2022 Outlook series. In this session, we're focusing on ESG software solutions business, K2fly, ASX ticker K2F. And joining us is CEO Nick Pollock and my colleague John Burgess. Welcome to you both.
Hi, Finola. Hi, John.
John, I'm going to hand to you to ask all the hard questions.
Thanks, Finola. I guess I'll start, Nick. Up until about March last year, most of the new contracts that you were announcing to the market were to do with RCube, which is your inventory resource reporting software for large mining companies. But the last few announcements have been more towards the ground disturbance product and the tailings management product. So I guess there's two questions there. With just a few signings to date, do we expect to see, is that now the next 2 or 3 years of contract signings in those two sort of products? And then secondly, do you still think RCube will see some signings as we go through calendar year 22?
Thanks, John. Great question. And some people might have heard me say in other sort of forums, what I'm loving about K2fly at the moment is that we're kicking goals from all around the ground, we've been on this acquisition path for a number of years now. We've done 4 acquisitions in 4 years or so, and at an increasing pace, and we're bringing in different IP, different solutions each time, all of which are complementary to our story and our goal. So, you're absolutely spot on. RCubed, or the inventory management solution, as we now refer to it, has been a tremendous acquisition for us in terms of getting us into these major mining companies, particularly the tier 1 and global tier 2 space. And there was deal after deal after deal. And then on the back of that, we brought in other solutions, as you say, and released other solutions like tailings. And what we're seeing is more focus on cultural heritage and the land management, and particularly ground disturbance. So to me, it's all about just the growth of the solution offering. We've gone from sort of 2 solutions to 5 to now 9 in the marketplace. And ideally they all happen together. But if I give you some recent history, Q4 of last fiscal year was very much in and around the Sativa suite, the technical assurance suite that we sold to Roy Hill, and that was our biggest deal historically then. Q1 for us was very much about tailings. We signed 3 or 4 new tailings customers, a number of which were on the ICMM membership list, which is a tremendous endorsement of our tailings solution. And again, the biggest deal we ever signed, which was with Sibanye Stillwater. And then the Q2, we signed the big deal with Rio Tinto in ground disturbance. So it just signals that each of these acquisitions and these solutions we're bringing to market are being readily adopted by the customers. And of course, we'd like to sell all of those things every quarter, but it just seems that that's the way it's gone at the moment. But back to your original proposition, the RCubed, or the inventory solution, is going to go on forever. We see our market share in that being north of 50% of the global 500, if you like, and then further down. And there's actual, there's new rules coming into play on the New York Stock Exchange, or the SEC in the US this year, in and around changes to regulations. And that drove a lot of the demand for the NYSE listed customers early. And then we're going to see another spike in that as they get held to account for that new disclosure requirements, which is quite onerous for them. And that pushes a lot of them to us. So I see that being a very, very consistent performer for some time to come. The other things like ground disturbance and heritage and tailings, but they are enterprise pieces of software, which are fundamental operating pieces of kit that these organisations will use for 10 years plus. All of the stuff we're replacing is 10 years old or more. So yes, we're announcing 5-year contracts, but the tail on these things is huge. And then as we roll from operation to operation, that gives us a big tail as well.
I guess my question too was, I guess, in terms of there's a number of companies now using RCube, the reporting system, but not that many using ground disturbance and tailing. So there's a long way to go, I imagine, in terms of number of customers you can sign.
Oh, totally. And you know, you see the difference in the scale of those deals as well. So we love RCube because it takes us to corporate. We're at the corporate level, corporate governance and disclosure, and we get all of the sites wrapped up in one. And you know, we're adding more and more modules to that to make the deal size bigger and more valuable. But you know, let's say in round terms now, the average is about, say, 250K per annum on an ARR basis, whereas the ground disturbance just for one operation in the Pilbara is 620K. You know, so the magnitude and you know, our investors quite rightly are saying to us, you guys, you deliver a hell of a lot of value to these people. You should be charging more. And we get it. But, you know, obviously they'll pay more for certain things and yeah, they're all valuable, but there's no doubt, and you saw in our quarterly report, the average size of deal now has gone from around, you know, the 100K mark to 370 in the first half of this year. And that's a trend we absolutely expect to see continuing.
And obviously with that, you've had to spend a lot more money now on staff and product development. So I guess the question is, you know, obviously you must be confident of getting a return, but what sort of returns are you looking at for that spend?
Well, more of the same. So, you know, you can see that our quarter-on-quarter growth, you know, 20% growth quarter-on-quarter in ARR and TCV, our year-on-year growth at 100% in recurring revenue, licensed revenue, in 180% in total contract value. That's what we're investing in. We're investing in keeping that growth going. The nature of what we do in terms of, so two things, if we bring it back to those two solutions, we acquired RCube. We won a good proportion of the market. There's a long way to go, albeit we have some really great names on there already, and that's important. So now we're building RCube version 2, you know, so we're plowing that money back into that product to make sure that we stay ahead of the industry. Right now, we're the only commercial off-the-shelf provider of that in the world, which is really unique. By coming out with version 2, we please our customers more. We build our moat around that product, and it enables us with better technology to deliver faster, quicker, better. So we can scale faster. So that's one thing. And then when it comes to big projects like the ground disturbance kind of stuff, you know, it's almost like an ERP type of project. You're implementing a big systems integration project on top of the software that you're delivering. So you need the people on the ground. So there's the development side that we just talked about in RCube, and then there's the delivery side with those sorts of projects. You have to have people and teams ready to go. And for an organisation of our size, a micro cap, let's face it, we don't have the balance sheet to have people sitting around waiting for this stuff. We have to balance our current delivery projects and cycles with what we see to be coming. So I would take that from an investor's perspective as a really good sign that we are very, very confident about what's coming down the line.
And you mentioned you've got 9 products on the market. Do you think that that portfolio satisfies your customers in terms of what they're looking for in ESG at the moment?
Yeah, look, I think the sales performance demonstrates that very clearly. You look at how fast we've grown, off the top of my head, sort of, you know, if you look at what we've done with Decipher and the tailing solution, we've grown that 500% in less than a year, the ARR and the TCV. We had tremendous growth with RCube. We've had a lot of growth with the Sativa acquisition. So I think we're getting it right. What's good about K2fly is that I think we pick those spaces really, really well. In terms of, you know, what we think the market's going to need. Remember, we build software or buy software that supports market and industry standards as opposed to try to create a standard. So that's a really important point. You know, tailing, the global tailing standard is coming out, was out now, and the companies that are signing up to have to be doing it by 2023. They've signed up, the CEOs have signed that commitment. That's a public statement. RCube, you know, we've got the changes happening in the US, as I say, we've got JORC 2020 coming out next year. So I think we've been really clever at that. Now, if you were to say, do we do everything in ESG for a mining company? No, we don't. And that's also very deliberate, because what we're really good at is picking those niche spots when we don't, which we think are underutilized and underappreciated, growing them. But then there's areas like obvious areas in mining, like carbon, like water, which are obviously big issues for the industry. We're not saying they're not problems or challenges that need to be addressed. What we're saying is that there's a lot of people going into those spaces because they are big issues. That's not necessarily where we can play today. Given the size of the business, we have to be focused on what we can execute really, really well. And I think that's what we've done really, really well, rather than moving into crowded spaces. The other part of that is that ultimately our operating model is that, we build software, we buy software, and we partner. So, they're the three ways we go to market. So we'll identify gaps in the market that we can address, and then how we address that will be different on those options. So you might find us partnering in those areas or buying some technology.
And Nick, in the past, you've sort of talked about expanding beyond the mining sector into perhaps other parts of the resources space, such as energy. Could you give us a bit of an update on how that's progressing?
Yeah, so again, if you take the sort of what we call the natural resource governance solution set that we have, or land management, that's really a lift and shift. You can lift and shift that straight into the oil and gas industry or the hydrocarbons industry. In fact, the original use case came out of that. So the actual software was built for non-conventional gas drilling on the east coast of Australia, where you've got obviously more condensed land use across pastoralists, across native title, across sensitive environmental areas, more population. So that's where it sort of originated from, if you like. And then we took it into mining. And then there was the sort of downturn in the other sectors. So we're constantly looking for those opportunities. Generally onshore, we could apply it offshore just as easily. The other thing is that there's this old sort of thing in having been in this business for a while where it's difficult for mining guys to sell into oil and gas, right? So it's just all vice versa. True or not, I don't know. That seems to be the general school of thought. So often the way you might go into that space is by an acquisition, so buying something that's doing something similar in that space and then putting the IP together to come up with a comprehensive solution. And that way you're getting the industry knowledge as well. We've got a number of people on staff now that are senior people out of the oil and gas industry as well. So we feel like we're getting really close to that. The other things is, linear utilities like rail. You think about, the Melbourne to Brisbane railway line cutting through multiple land areas, landowners, different environmental, different traditional owner groups. You think about it, there's a heap of that going on, right? So we think we can add a lot of value in that space. Wind farms, solar farms take up a lot of area, then there's a lot of environmental impacts and all sorts of things. So there's really good use cases, even agriculture. So I don't think that's far away. We've got a long way to go though on mining though, we've just scratched the surface of our addressable market really. And so, our strategy has always been, let's really own that space. Doesn't mean we push everything away, but we definitely want to get into other verticals, but we're pretty busy addressing that market now. But we're always thinking about it. Yeah.
Well, Nick, we're looking forward to catching up with you through the course of 2022 to check on K2fly's progress. Thank you so much for joining us today, Nick Pollock and John Burgess.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for your time.